So coming up in November, we have a meetup scheduled, which is on one of my favorite topics. It's on Power Query. So it's the magic of filters in Power Query, and it'll be presented on November 16th by Andrea Horvath. So keep that in mind if it's a topic that interests you. We do have other topics tentatively scheduled for the rest of this year and even into early 2023, if you can believe that that's so soon. So, but we will be announcing the actual dates and times once we finalize them with our presenters. So Faraz does his monthly summary of the different meetups. So coming up after our meetup tonight is one in Vancouver with Shandeep Chabra, one in London with David Ringstrom, one in Baku with Anna Mativa, and one in London, another one in London with Shandu, but it's an in-person one. So I think most of us are going to end up missing that one, which is a shame. Anyway, so next slide. And we want to thank the Reactor Toronto. They help us with these sessions with some of the advertising, sending out notices to people, letting people know the sessions are going to happen. They have some excellent resources available. So their contact information is here. I will be popping some of this stuff into the chat once I get finished going through these slides. So you'll be able to grab some of these items. But if you sign up for their email notices, you get told about quite a few different groups that are presenting in the Toronto area. And then, whoops, we have Catherine Mondragon has started a Facebook group for Excel consultants. So that's one to check out if you are an Excel consultant and are interested in joining. And coming up in November, we have the Bulgaria Excel Days, which is a live in-person conference over several days with some really terrific presenters. So if you can get yourself to Bulgaria and sign up for these things, there's some very, very good presentations and master classes. So something to keep in mind if that's on your schedule. Celia has her SNAP Reports program, which is a course that she's offering. It's full at the moment, but we do have a waiting list for that. So I will be popping that information in the chat. And I will also be popping in the link to the free modules of the course, so you can take a peek and see the kind of stuff that's being offered. And now to the highlight. I want to welcome Ian Schnoor to this evening's meeting. Ian has offered to present on advanced Excel skills for financial modeling. I happened to watch this presentation at the Global Excel Summit in the spring sometime. I forget what the exact dates were. And it was very, very interesting. So I'm sure this evening it will be another good one. While it says it's for financial modeling, I did find that even though I'm not a financial modeler, there were some excellent ideas that I was able to steal and use in my own versions of Excel for my own purposes. So Ian, I'm going to ask you to present yourself more fully, and thank you very, very much for offering to present to us this evening. We're looking forward to it. So I'm going to stop presenting and ask Ian to start. So there you go. There you go, Ian.
Fantastic. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Awesome. Okay, well, if you can, then the rest can. So first of all, thank you all so much. It's a real thrill to be here today. I'm excited to share with you some technical Excel skills that relate to financial modeling. And we're going to talk a little bit about modeling and share with you some really important Excel technical skills that you'll need in good financial modeling. So before we do any of that, I'll just do a quick run through of my own background, and so you know where I am and who I am and what I'm all about, and then we'll have at least an hour to go into the skills and the tips. Now, I'll just tell you how I like to work is I like to kind of keep it really casual and interactive. So if you have questions, I encourage you to toss them in as you go. In fact, I'm going to say something that you never hear on webinars. I encourage you, you're welcome to even unmute yourself. If I say something, you're welcome to unmute. I love that. You can ask me a question. I know Gráinne is cringing here, but it is, I have no problem if you want to unmute and just chat, because if you've got a question, you can do that. You can put it in the chat, whatever you like. I want to keep everyone engaged and kind of hearing and absorbing what I am doing. Now I'm looking over, when you see me look over to my right like this, I have got a big screen here so I can see all of you and I can see the chat as well. So I can see where you are. And if you do have questions, I can, keep my eyes on them. Before I get into my intro, I'd love to know where the rest of you are. A couple people put your comments where you were just a moment ago. And I saw a few of you anyway, were coming to us from the US, which is amazing. I'm up in Toronto, in Canada here, but would love to hear, right? Hey, George, you're in Oakville, so pretty close. Where else are people from? Saw someone before from Toronto. Thank you, Patty, from New Zealand. Fantastic, Henry. Amazing. So it is early morning on Thursday for you. Amazing. And that is going to be the farthest away. I'm gonna call that one right now. New Zealand will be the farthest away from Edmonton, Atlanta. Incredible. Wow. And we got Alabama, Florida. I love it. So you can keep going on this. It's great to see. Oh, amazing. Wow. Someone from Syria. It's always great to see where people come from. I'm just continuing to look at the screen here because it's funny. Excel really, I have found Excel and financial modeling really bring people together. South Africa, incredible, because it is sort of a universal language of finance and of business and of modeling. I'm still looking at the chat because I see so many great locations where people are coming from. That is amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and share my screen. I wanted to give you a quick intro, a little bit about who I am, and then get right into our technical skills and tips here today. So I am going to be sharing my screen here. I assume, oops, I don't know if did that share. I think that shared, right? Can you guys see my, look at that, a little a Mexico video. Love it. Again, I'm more of a Zoom user than a Teams user, but can you guys just give me a thumbs up or let me know? I assume you can see my screen. Is that fair enough? I don't see your screens. Anyone want to
see your screen, Ian?
Great. You can see my screen. Fantastic. Awesome. Yes. Great. So let me quickly tell you a little bit about myself, why I'm here, and then we'll jump right in. So I wear a couple of different hats, and I started my career many years ago, 25 years ago, as an investment banker. I worked in Toronto at BMO, which is a Canadian bank, and then I spent a few years working at Citi, obviously large global bank. And then around 20 years ago, I left and I started this company. It's called the Marquee Group. The Marquee Group is a training business. And through the Marquee Group, we now have a big team of around 20 people. We run training courses all over the world in financial modeling, Excel, advanced Excel skills, data science, Python, valuation, accounting, all sorts of skills that people need to become strong financial professionals. Here in Canada, we run courses at most of the banks, pension funds, and I have taught all over the world. I think I've taught close to 2,000 days over the last 20 years in financial modeling topics, and so I'm excited to be here today. And then around 5 years ago, I was involved in starting up with a bunch of people globally this organization called the Financial Modeling Institute. And what we do at the FMI, the Financial Modeling Institute, is an accreditation body. What we're out to do is change the world of modeling a little bit by having a formal, rigorous accreditation, by allowing people to sit through a really challenging set of exams to prove to the world that they have strong modeling skills. And the reason we did that is because we started noticing that many years ago, employers were putting right on their job postings. They would say, they're saying we're looking for an accountant or a CFA, but we also want people who have strong financial modeling skills. And that's new. Around 5-7 years ago was when organizations started doing that. In fact, I've got a question. Can anyone just raise your hand? Raise your hand, or I think you can click on the 3 dots. I'd love to know if anyone has ever seen a job posting that says, we're looking for people who have strong financial modeling skills. Has anyone seen that before? I'm just wondering if you want to raise your, yeah, you've seen that. See a couple of hands go up here. Sure. Yeah, a bunch of you are raising your hands. You've seen that. Right. Great. And for the rest of you, you'll see this as well. Pay attention long enough and you'll see it. George says, nope. Well, you probably will at some point if you watch job postings. It's relatively new, George, last number of years. But there was no way for people to prove they had strong modeling skills. So what we do at the FMI, and I'll talk about it in just a second before I get into my content, is rigorous proctored financial modeling exams. I am also a lecturer at a university called Queen's University, just outside of Toronto, and I've been teaching there for over 10 years. I teach a class called Advanced Financial Modeling. So today's session, I'm going to be focusing on skills. I'm not talking about modeling discipline today, but I'll be talking about some important technical skills, Excel skills that you need in financial modeling. But as Gráinne mentioned, honestly, the skills I show you today will be transferable and applicable to anything, to any spreadsheet you ever build. They're particularly helpful in financial models, but, oh, thank you, Fernando, for putting our website. That's right. He's put the Financial Modeling Institute website. You're welcome to check that out on your own when you have a moment. You can do it after our session. Yeah, I'm not going to spend much time talking about the FMI. We right now have 3 levels of accreditation. Level 1 is called our AFM, Advanced Financial Modeler. That's our level 1 accreditation. But we also have a foundations program, which is a gentle on-ramp. If you've never done financial modeling, foundations teaches you all about the concepts, the ideas, and it allows you to get a badge with a gentle 1-hour, pretty basic test. It's not challenging, but it allows you to get warmed up before you commit to our challenging AFM exam. But what it does is for anyone who has AFM, it's a proof. It is absolute proof that that person has excellent financial modeling skills. The rest of the slides you can take a look at on your own. It talks a lot about what we're doing and how the FMI works. But what I want to do is focus on the skills here of financial modeling. Now, I'm going to show you a financial model. By the way, in today's webinar, everything I share with you on the screen, we're going to share with you after. So I've got my slides. I'm going to send the slides to you. I'm going to be showing you a financial model in a few minutes, and I'm going to send that through to you as well. And I've got some notes that I'm going to take here as well. Okay, so let's start off then here, and I'm going to put on, let me see, actually, you've got a question from Celia, which is financial modeling done only through Excel? And I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So let me start by asking, this is a question. When I run classes all over the world, I like to start by asking people, what is a financial model? Because some people have done it, some people have not done modeling before. And again, I'm going to share these notes, so you're welcome to take your own, but you don't need to. I like taking notes as I go. But when I like to ask people in class, and if you were all with me together, I'd ask you to share your thoughts. But really, very, very simply, all it is simply, if someone says to you, what's a financial model? The answer is pretty straightforward. It's simply a forecast. That's all we're doing. All we're doing here is building a forecast of a company. It's either a company forecast of a full company or a division or a business line, whatever. But we're building some sort of a forecast into the future. How many of you guys, I'm looking at the screen here. I see a whole bunch of you. How many of you have done modeling before? How many of you have done some forecasting or modeling? I'm expecting a lot of you to say yes. So go ahead, don't be shy. Raise your hands if you've done. Yeah, a bunch of hands. Sure, of course you have. Anyone who works, with Excel long enough? Good. A lot of hands going up. Sure you have. Have done some forecasting, some modeling. That's it. So if someone says, what is a model? All we're talking about is a forecast of a whole company or a division or a business line, etc. Celia asked a question in the chat, and she said, are financial models done exclusively in Excel? And the answer is no. They are typically done in spreadsheets. You can do, some people do, I'll put here, usually done in Excel. Could be other spreadsheets, but Excel is still the most common one in the business community. Or I'll say what I call black box software. Black box software. Black box software is a piece of software that does your forecasting for you. Some of it's fine. Some of the software is fine, but it never, never, never gives you the flexibility that you need with a spreadsheet-based tool. Now, I see a question here thank you, Fernando, question is, do you, yes, the answer is everyone probably sees this black rectangle. I have no idea what that is. I was chatting with Celia about this before the webinar starts. Again, I use Teams a fair bit. I haven't seen it before. I mostly spend my life in Zoom. My wife likes to joke that I'm probably the world's highest Zoom user on the planet. I spend most of my life in Zoom. So I'm not as intimate with Microsoft Teams. If anybody knows, don't worry, it's fine. If you see, I tried clicking those pins. Thank you. They're not doing anything. I'm clicking the pins. I'm clicking the down arrow. It's not doing anything. Honestly, it's not a problem. Click on the pin at the right. This one, nothing seems to be doing anything. So anyway, if anyone has an idea, you can chat or just
you can unpin it, so it will hide automatically when you click somewhere else.
No, I'm clicking here. It's not going away. Thank you, Vivek.
But
unfortunately,
you have it pinned right now. So if you unpin it,
I'm clicking though everywhere here. I'm clicking.
Just top icon, the one above, the one above.
This one here. Yeah. No, I've been clicking all day long. It's not doing anything.
Okay. Continue, please.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Vivek. And feel free to unmute yourself. It's just, I tried that. It's not going away. Guys, honestly, don't worry about that. It is not going to stop anything. You're not going to need to worry about it. I'm going to be focusing on the middle of the screen, but thank you for trying to help me with that. So as we said, it's just a forecast, but what I want to hear you say, and to help solve is, what is a model? It's just a forecast. It's usually done in Excel. It's usually 5 to 10 years. Usually people are forecasting 5 to 10 years, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But yeah, right, is forecast revenue, profit, anything? Sure. Well, actually, that's a great question. What are we forecasting? Usually forecasting 5 to 10 years, and we're forecasting the company's financial statements. That's what we're doing. That's what a model is. We're building usually a 5 to 10 year forecast of a company's financial statements. And actually, let me ask you this, because you guys seem interested. Why? Why do we forecast? Can someone kind of toss that into the chat? Why are we forecasting? And then I'm going to talk about some of the technical skills we need. Why are we forecasting, by the way? Can anyone just type? I'd love to see some ideas. Why? Planning. Thank you. Time value. Great. Let's do some more. Come on, guys. Toss something in. Cash management. Love it. Why are we forecasting? Well, what I will tell you is, and this is why it's so critical, guys, models have become easily the most important decision-making tools in finance. Models have become the most important decision-making tools in finance. Models are used for all kinds of decisions that we make in business, in accounting, in finance. So what types of decisions? What types of decisions are people making? Yeah, I see a bunch of great stuff here. What kinds of decisions do we make with our models? Well, just general planning, budgeting decisions. We make decisions about valuation, investing. We make decisions around ROIs, like that's similar to investing. Yeah, I love it. Eric, great one, right? Company asset allocations. Right. Also, it's sort of a planning concept, but we use models. What else, guys? Amazing. I love it. Hiring, right? Fantastic. Hiring. I can go on forever. Hiring decisions based on models. We evaluate risk and volatility based on models. Fantastic. Cash flow, capital structure needs. Will be based off models. I love it. And there's a ton of stuff. You guys have a ton of great concepts. So the point is this. Yeah, every comment you guys made is excellent. Year-end bonuses of the big guys. Is that you, George? The big guys. Let's put it year-end. I love it. Bonuses of the big guys. Right? I'll put George. That's from George. I hope that's you, George. I can't spell today, George. G-E-O-R. But you're absolutely right, 100%. You're absolutely right. We use models to do all of these things and more, and more. The problem is this, right? Thank you, George, for that. The problem is, and this is why we're here, the problem is most financial models in spreadsheets are a mess. Most people's spreadsheet tools are a mess. They're a mess. They don't work very well. And because they don't work very well, it's very difficult to make good decisions. It's really hard to make a good decision if your Excel spreadsheet forecast is a disaster. And so, by the way, this is not today. You can, I have other, just because a lot of you seem interested in this, hard codes are a big problem. You can look for my other webinars. They're all over YouTube. If you're interested in learning more about financial modeling, my other modeling webinars, because I have been delivering webinars, free webinars all over the world over the last couple of years during COVID. There is one called Financial Modeling Best Practices. If you look for that webinar, there's another webinar called Skills to Check a Model with Excel. And so these have been very popular. I've been running these all over the world. If Celia and Gráinne want, we can do one of these here one day as well if you're interested. But they're all over the internet if you want to see another, 60 or 90-minute webinar on some modeling best practices. And that's not what we're here to do today. Today, we're here to talk about how to make sure that your models are working clean, technical, with the Excel technical skills you need to build a powerful model. So I told you many financial models are a big problem. They are a mess. Oh, you saw it. Okay. Tori seems to, I'll pay you after, Tori. I'll send a check your way. Just send me your address again so I know where to send it. Just kidding. But Tori has seen it. Thank you, Tori. She says best practices was a good webinar, so you're welcome. That comes right from Tori. I did not pay Tori to say that. Yeah, you're welcome to check those out. So let's talk about, before I show you what a model is, let me tell you, though, a good model, now you know what a model is, right? A model is just a forecast. That's it. We're forecasting the company's financial statements into the future. Why? So we can make critical decisions for the organization, for the business. Now, I told you that most models are a mess. How does a good model needs to work in two different ways? A good financial model needs to work in two different ways. And today I'm going to talk about one of those ways. So number one, a good model needs to work well electronically. A good model needs to work well electronically, which means every formula must make sense. The Excel must be logical. Whatever Excel functionality you use must be logical. Thank you, George. Whatever Excel features you use must be logical. They must be clear. Because George, let's pretend you were my boss. If George was my boss and I showed him my spreadsheet, he has to be able to understand every single formula. And that doesn't happen all the time. So a good model has to work well in Excel. It has to be clear so that when someone opens it, they can understand. Guys, quick question for you. Has anybody here, please raise your hand. Has anybody here, I'm looking at you, has anyone ever opened up an Excel spreadsheet you did not build and you clicked on a cell and the formula was so long that it wrapped around and around and around? You guys are Excel lovers. Who here's ever seen a formula that wrapped around and around and around and it went on forever and you needed to get a stiff drink before you were able to look at it? Sure. Some of you have seen that before. I'm sure most of you have seen that. It's a disaster. Don't ever be impressed when people do that. It makes it very difficult, right, Eric? It's very difficult to read, to understand, right, Gráinne? It's frustrating, and you shouldn't have to be frustrated looking at it. So a good model has to work well electronically. Also, a good model needs to work well on paper or as a PDF. So people can read it, so the people can read it and understand it. So I'm going to show you now some Excel functionality we can use, some technical skills to make sure that your models work beautifully. I'll tell you, a model needs to tell a powerful story. Your spreadsheet files, guys, you don't get told this very often. You're all Excel lovers. You all use Excel. You know what I would always tell you? Every single thing you ever build in Excel, every tool you ever build, every spreadsheet you ever build in Excel has to tell a story. It has to be able to communicate its message clearly. And if it doesn't, it can be better. You need to be able to use it to communicate and clear ideas. So let me show you some powerful Excel skills that allow us to do that really. Like, I feel like I'm the only one in the world that knows how to, Eric, you're saying you feel like you're the only one in the world that knows how to print format. Well, I do it as well, so maybe there's two of us. No, there's more than that, but for sure. I love all the comments in the chat, guys. Keep them coming. I love it. If I don't get to you directly, then just send me an email after. By the way, it sounds like some of you are going to maybe check out some of these webinars on YouTube. I post videos in case you're interested, on my LinkedIn page. If you ever want to follow me on LinkedIn, and the series I'm currently working on is the top 10 reasons a balance sheet doesn't balance. I'm in the middle of a series I'm posting on LinkedIn. Just, was it yesterday? Yesterday, I post reason number 5. They're also on YouTube, but on my LinkedIn page, if you want to check out my LinkedIn page, you can follow me if you like. I'm in the middle of a series I'm doing on the top 10 reasons people's balance sheets don't balance. And you can check those out if you want to see the classic errors people get into in their models. So let's do this. Eric, you're asking me if I'm going to delve into a VBA. No, not today. Today's session is not about VBA. We could spend a lot of time on VBA. I want to show you some really great Excel things that are just Excel skills. So let's talk about some Excel tools and features needed to build strong models. So what I want to do is I want to show you some Excel tools and features that you need to build strong models. But before I do that, I should actually show you a model. So let's do that. Let's take a look. Does everyone see this? This is a financial model. It's called the Henderson Manufacturing Company model. And there are a few tabs. You can see my mouse at the bottom here. I've got a cover tab, an executive summary. I've got all my assumptions, a scenario page, and then the model tab. I'm going to show you all of these in just a moment. But then I'm going to get into some Excel skills that I think you're really going to like. So I hope you hang out for all of these. There's going to be some great tips that people really enjoy. Look what I've got here. By the way, we're going to send you this model. You're going to get this model sent to you as a reference guide, by the way. So I've got a cover sheet in the model. Why? Why do I have a cover sheet? Because I want the model. If somebody printed it, let me do this, guys. If somebody printed it, the very first page would look and feel like a presentation. I told you a model has to be a powerful communication tool. So there's a cover page. I would encourage you to put a cover page on all your Excel files. It adds confidence. It makes people feel like you're showing them a presentation tool, not just a garbage set of numbers. Very easy, very simple, but I have a very simple cover page. The next thing that I always do in a good financial model is show people an executive summary. The second thing is an executive summary page. Why? Because the first thing your boss wants to know is what's the answer, right? George, you like that one? We'll get into a lot more here, but right, George, if you first show people a cover page, the first thing people really want to know is what's the answer? What's the answer to this model that the problem you're trying to solve? And let's pretend we needed to know what was revenue and revenue growth going to look like in the EBITDA forecast. You could include graphs and charts or whatever you need. But this is the first thing my user wants to know is what's the answer? I'm showing them under my base case. I'm doing it again under the best case and again under the worst case. But it's a very simple, clean, presentable table that explains the answer to this particular model. That's how people think. After that, right? Good. After that, the next thing people want to know is, so if George is my boss and I say, George, this is what's going to happen in our forecast. I think revenue is going to look like this. I think EBITDA is going to look like this. This is the kind of EBITDA margins we're going to get, et cetera, whatever. Maybe I would include some valuation, my NPVs, ROIs, put whatever you want. But as soon as I show George the answer and say, George, this is the answer. Well, of course, the next thing George is going to say to me is, Ian, great, but how did you get there? What decisions did you make to get there? And I'll say, great question, George. Now that you want to know how I got there, let me show you on the next tab all my assumptions. And I will show George one page, only one page, that has all of the inputs and assumptions that I used to build this model. Very powerful, very powerful. Looks something like this, guys. On paper, let me do it a different way. I'm going to go to give print preview mode. Now, you can't see the numbers. That's okay. What I want you to see is, what would it look like if it was a paper-based tool? Someone would see it and they would feel like there's a page, and then if they turn the next page, it looks like a presentation. I've got all my labels. I've got my inputs for all the various assumptions. Fine. I'm still just showing you flow. I want to get you a sense for model flow. Good, right, George? George is saying, perfect. That's exactly right, George. George is saying, I'm not happy. I'm not happy with what you used for raw material cost, Ian. I think that should be a little higher. Great. Thanks, George. I'll make it a higher. We'll change it to 230. The point is, everything George needs to know is here. What depreciation method did I use, right, George? I'm using straight line over 25 years. What interest rates am I using on debt? It's right here. And George can say, you're crazy. That's way too low. It shouldn't be 6. It should be 8. Okay, I'll change it, right? And we can discuss all the assumptions up front and decide together whether we like them. What's the capital expenditure forecast that we use in the model? Good. Is it reasonable? Do you like it? Great. But that's the idea. So I have here so far, I'm showing you flow. Model flow is critical. But I'm going to stop on this page because I want to use this page to show you. I'm showing you some technical skills, right? So Henry, you're asking, I want to get into a lot of modeling questions, but I want to get into, I want to now blend Henry into then the technical skills. And we're going to spend the rest on some technicals. And Henry, the first one is this, right? I want to show you the first one on centering. Thank you for that segue. Titles, because this is one that gets people into a lot of trouble. So Henry, maybe you can help me with this because you commented, which is great. Thank you. Do you see this, guys? What I've done is I've got the company name. Now, by the way, if you ever build a financial model, what I always tell people is only ever type the company name once. I've got my company name. I entered it up front here, the name Henderson, and it's there once. Every other time I need it, I'm just going to link it back. I'm going to reference it so that if I change it once, it'll change everywhere. No problem. My point, though, is this. In a financial model, very often people like to center their titles, right? Henry, we like to center our title across the entire range. And there's a couple different ways to do that. So Henry, help me out. What would you do? How would you? This is a very important technical skill in modeling. And then I got 5 or 6 others I want to show you as well. How would you center a title if you wanted it like this one, right? I'm not showing you yet how I did it, but very often people like to see. Let's look at the model. On the model, I got a revenue page. The company name is centered, right? What do you think? Okay, good. Thank you. Good. So George is saying merge, merge and center, merge and center. Right, merge and center. Can I show you this? What most people do is as follows. Most people will select the entire range like this. Watch. They'll go to the home screen and they'll click this little button in the middle. Has everyone seen that says merge and center? Do me a favor, raise your hand if you've ever done this in a model or seen it. Let me click on it. Raise your hand, please. I want to see how many of you have ever seen a spreadsheet that had a merged cell like that across the top. Yeah, sure. So many of you have. It works. It looks good. But I agree with most of you that you're saying this is a problem. This is actually a bit of a disaster. So my tip is centering titles, and I would strongly, as a technical skills, strongly recommend to avoid merging cells. People do it all the time, but it's not optimal. What's the problem? The problem with merging cells, is that it paralyzes the model, right? It becomes very, very difficult to, you can't insert columns, you can't delete columns, you can't navigate very easily because you got one giant merged cell. So what I'm going to tell you is this. I strongly, and I like a bunch of you knew this already, perfect. Yeah, right, Tori, you can't add columns, you can't make changes easily. Guys, if you ever see merged cells in a spreadsheet, I would encourage you to unmerge them. And a much better option, as some of you have already said, maybe some of you've seen this, some of you haven't, is better option is to center across selection. So let me now show you how to do that. What we do is you're going to do this. Help me up. Watch this. You go to the cell and I highlight my range. Once again, I am highlighting my range. And then I want to format this cell. Guys, can you go to the chat? Who here knows the keyboard shortcut to format? I do not want to do this. Take a look. Can you see what I'm doing? I do not want to right click and go down to format. Has anyone done that? Has anyone here ever gone to the formatting cells and right clicked before? Anyone never done that before? Sure, we have. People have done this. Let's not do that. That's painful. How do we format cells? You probably know this. Hopefully you do. This is a lefty. It's a left-hander shortcut. It's Control and the number 1. This is a simple one, but you should use this one all day, every day. Control and the number 1 pops open the formatting cell dialog box. Formatting cells, and then we're going to go to the alignment tab. And on the alignment tab, I want to go to the horizontal option. You've been here a million times, but some of you may not have realized that in horizontal, there's an option. Look where I am, please. An option that says center across selection. Watch what happens when I click center across selection and click OK. It looks like I merged the cells. Like it looks merged, but it's not. All the cells are still there. It's a much, much more effective, dynamic way to center titles. Now, let me see here. George says he had it first. How did you know this is not a competition, George? I think it is a competition, actually. Did you not get told there's a prize? No, I'm just kidding. I hope everyone knows Control 1. Control 1 is table stakes. You need to know Control 1. Use it all day long. Again, Control 1 pops open the formatting cell dialog box, center across selection. So use that, please, when you need to center titles, and do not merge cells because it gets your spreadsheet in trouble. Fun. That's a simple one to warm up with. The second tip that I want to show you, the second one that I want to show you is this, is a formatting values clearly. I want to show you a very, very powerful formatting technique in Excel to format your numbers. And I will put a note here that says it is so important to format every cell clearly so people understand. I will tell you one of the biggest all-time problems, one of the biggest problems in models is that cell values are not clear. Cell values are not clear. Let me give you an example. Let's pretend I was building a model and I said that the energy required was going to be 56. 56. How do we measure energy? Can someone go into the chat? What units could this be? If I said, yeah, the energy assumption is it's 56. What is that? How do we measure? Yeah, right. Is it thank you, Henry. Is it kilowatt hours? Is it watts? Is it kilowatts? What else? More. There's more ways to measure energy. Joules. Thank you. Is it GJs? Is it gigajoules? Is it joules? I don't know. One of the most frustrating things for me when I review people's models is I see things like this. It'll say energy, 56 calories. Thank you. And I'll say, what are you talking about? 56 what? 56 gigajoules, megawatts, kilowatts. I have no idea. And so many models fall down and collapse because your boss or your client doesn't understand. Times 1,000. There are 1,000 cells that they don't understand, and people get very, very frustrated. So let me show you here. Let me show you here. Let's take a look at this. Let's go back into the model, and I'm going to show you the depreciation box. Does everyone see this? Take a look. It's clear, right? My depreciation box says, what method did we use? Well, we're using straight line to depreciate these assets. And over how long? Well, pretty clear, right? Our existing assets are good for 25 more years, and new assets are going to be good for 30 years. Perfect. Okay, excellent. Perfect. That's great. It's clear. But my question is this. Did I, let me show you another example. No, I don't have an easy one to show you, but the point is this is clear. I didn't show you the cells yet, but the numbers are very, very clear. So let me ask you this. Let's pretend I had depreciation and I had a cell that said 25 years. That's what you just saw. Or let's pretend there was a ratio, and the ratio had to be less than 4.5 times. And I'm going to make them blue because they're inputs. What do you think? Look at this cell here in my model. This is, I'm not showing it to you on purpose, I'm not, but the cell that says 25 years, the cell that says 30 years, did I go in here and type in 25 years? Did I do that? Is that what I typed into that cell? Did I type in 25 years? Would I ever type in less than 4.5x? Would I do that? No, of course not. Don't ever type it in, because what's in these two cells? This cell contains text. Of course, it contains text, right? It's text. This cell contains text. I'll make it red. It's text. It's not usable. This is not usable. So what I really want to do, watch, of course, what I really want to do is we need to use I think one of the best skills in building spreadsheets and models is we need to use custom formatting for clarity. Now, there are some basics, and then I want to show you a couple of advanced features within custom formatting, because there's some great things people sometimes have not seen before within custom formatting. The only thing I really want to type in the cell is the ratio value, 4.5, and for the depreciation, I'll type in 25, right? So the only thing that I should have in this cell is the number 4.5 and the number 25. Okay, fine. Now it's a value. What's the problem with this number right now, the 25? What's the problem with this number, the 4.5? It's not clear. Nobody knows what it means, right? If you just said depreciation 25, your boss would say, what does that mean, Ian? Is it 25 months, 25 years, 25%? What does it mean? So I need to make it clear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my, once again, into my formatting cells dialog box, Control 1. And this time I'm going to go to the number tab and build a custom number format. And here it works really, this is the basics. This is the basics. Very, very simple. The basics are this. If you ever want to make your own custom number format, you can enter a 0 in the type box, either a 0 or the number sign, the pound key, and I will see who knows the difference between them. Let me enter a 0 for now. For instance, if I type in 0.0, that's a placeholder. What that is a placeholder for a digit. So 0.0 means I want a digit with 1 decimal. Okay, fine. The rest is really easy. If you ever want 1 character, 1 letter before or after, you're allowed to just type it in. As an example, if I want a less than sign before, I'll type in less than, and then my digit 0.0, and then let's say an X. You're allowed 1 letter, not even every letter, but a lot of letters. If I want a single letter, I can have less than 0.0 and then the letter X. And when I press enter, please, or click OK, look what happens. Now this cell looks like it says less than 4.5 times. It's clear. This value is now clear. This value is now clear, but just contains a number. It just contains the number 4.5, but it looks like it says less than 4.5 times. It looks exactly the same as this cell, but this one's a piece of text, and this one is really a value that I can use later in a formula. Fine. So I just told you that if you want 1 letter before or after, you type it in, no big deal. What if you want more than 1 letter? What if you want to say 25 years? If you just type in 0 and the word years, it won't work. It won't work. Anyone know how we do this? If you, right, George, pretty cool. If you want more than 1 letter, you type in 0. Who knows? Go to the chat. Go to the text, please. The chat. How do I get the word joules or gigajoules or kilowatt hours? How can I put a word after my digit? Yeah, you have to put it in, Sandra, thank you, in quotation marks. Everyone see what Sandra said? You must put it in quotations. Thank you, Eric. Like in quote, yeah, can you see that, Eric? In double, like this. Look at my fingers, in double quotation marks. So if I say 0 and then the word years in quotation marks, look, it is the word, the only thing here is the number 25, but it looks like it says 25 years. So the custom format that I just built is 0 is 0, and then the word years in quotes. Very, very powerful. And this is just the basics. This is just getting started. Okay. So look, these two cells look exactly the same as these two cells. On paper, you would have no idea. But of course, in a model, this is the only acceptable way because now I can use these values in formulas. Done. Fine. Perfect. Good. Yes. Good. Raheel, you like it? Simple. Now, that's the basics. That's the real basics here. By the way, guys, in the slides that I'm going to be sharing with you, there are pages on all of this stuff. So the page on custom formatting has a bunch of information around how custom formatting works. 20, what is it? How about, okay, Henry. Okay, good. So you're asking something different. This is really important. Henry is now saying what, because right now this is a number, right, Henry? It's 25 years. So this works if it is 25, 30, 15. But of course, if I put the number 1, it's still going to say years. Let me see if I can, the simple answer is that there's no simple way to do that. I can try to show, there's a way that might work. I probably wouldn't use custom formatting for this, but there might be a more advanced option that I will show you. I want to show everyone else a few other things here first, though, on that one. And yeah, no need, right, Eric? No need to use a helper column. Has anyone who's ever seen this before? Who's ever seen it? Sounds like you have, Eric. Who's ever seen somebody build a number that's a ratio, and then what they do is they make a little skinny column beside it, and the skinny column is where you put your X, right, Eric? You've ever had Eric, you've ever seen that before, the skinny column, the X column? Yeah, that's a disaster. Let's not do that. No need to use the skinny helper column. Exactly. We can do this much more effectively, without the skinny helper column, right? You use so units column are great. So first of all, Henry, a unit column is super. Take a look here. In the model itself, I agree. If you have a unit, I do too. In a model, I like to have a column called units all the time. Every model I would build, right, Henry? So because here, this value is dollars per unit. This value is percentages. This value is thousands of units, millions of dollars. A units column is very powerful to have a units column. Totally agree with you there, Henry. But sometimes on like an assumption page or something like this, you want to enter a numeric value, but have the formatting as part of it. It would be a little awkward if I had a column here, right, that said years. So that's right, Henry. There's no perfect answer, but it's nice to know how you can custom format a value so that the cell is clear. Now, if you, though, Henry, would you agree? If you want a value that's a ratio like this, you might want every numeric value to have the less than and the X. So it's just different skills, different tools for different situations. Now, what you might not have seen is this. As I told you, there are two characters to denote the value. And I told you that you can use 0 or what's the pound key or the number key. Does anyone know the difference? Go to the chat. So what you could have done is this. Does everyone see how I did 25 years? The way I custom formatted it is I did 0 and then years. I also could have done the number sign, pound key, and then years. And it looks exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. My custom format is 0 years, or it could have been the pound key and then the years. But there's a difference. There's a very, very important difference. Does anyone... does anyone know that? So Paul, you've said 0 is required, optional. Yeah, I'll use a slightly right. Sure, good, Sandra, thank you. What I will describe it as this. Take a look. The difference is something like this. Imagine I had the number 1,000, okay? Imagine I had a value 1,000, and I wanted to build a custom number format. Don't ask me why, but I wanted a custom number format so that it had a comma separator, right? I want to put a comma. What I could do is I could custom format it like this. I could do pound, comma, pound, 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 or I could say 0, comma, 0, 0, 0. So let's try both. Watch this. I'm going to do both. I'm going to do zeros and I'll do pounds. In the first one, I'll go into this value and I'm going to build a custom number format. And I'm going to use pound, comma, pound, pound, pound. That's how I'm building the format, by indicating that there should be 1,000 comma separator, and click OK. Well, it looks good. I did that with pound keys and it's 1,000 with a comma. Good. Let me do it again. Let me do it again, though, this time with 0, comma, 0, 0, 0. And you'll see it looks exactly the same. So what's the difference? What's the difference? It's what some of you said. Take a look. If I had custom formatted it with pounds, like that, pounds. If I now take a look, enter 456, looks like that. Looks like that, 456. If I enter 656, or if I enter 78, it looks like that, as you would expect. However, if I had custom formatted it with zeros instead, now watch. If I enter 789, it gives me the leading 0. If I enter 56, it gives me 0, comma, 056. So how do you do it? How do you do it? What's the distinction then? Is the 0, someone mentioned this, I think it was you, Sanda, always holds a spot, whereas the pound only displays what we say significant digits. So a very common custom number format is this. A very common custom number format is pound, comma, pound, pound, 0.00. This is a very common custom number format because it means you're always going to get 2 decimal spots. You'll always get a value to the left of the decimal, 1 value, but anything further will only appear if there's a significant value. If you have a single digit like 7, you won't see 07. This is often very, very helpful. This is very helpful for inventory codes or other codes where you have leading zeros. So I often get emails all the time by people saying, how do I show a 4-digit number that has 6 zeros in front of it? This is how you do it. And so now you kind of have a sense for that. Okay. So that is the first thing that I wanted to show you there in terms of custom number formatting. One more thing I want to show you on this particular skill, actually 2 more before we move on. You might not have seen this. So this is where I was going with that. So what Sandra was saying is sometimes we have logic, right? And this was what who was asking? Henry, you were asking, is can you do this? This works on some things. Let's try it here together. So let's pretend I want to build a custom number format. What you can do is use square brackets, right? And the square brackets allow you to say, so you might be able to say less than or equal to this. The intention, Sandra, for this is positive, negative. Okay, this is intended to be positive, negative, but let's give it a try. You can say less than or equal to 1 in a square bracket. I'm going to try it. I'm not sure yet. Then I'm going to put in quotation marks the word year, or I need to put a 0 first. I'll put a 0. So what I'm doing is I'm saying if the value is less than or equal to the number 1, it's sort of a rule. Year, and then a semicolon, but I'm going to get there in just a second. This is kind of a hack job if this does work, and then I will say greater than 1, we're going to do this. If the value is greater than 1, let me try it. I'm not 100% sure this will work. Then I'm going to say 0, and then I'll put the quotation mark years and press OK. So 5, of course, is 5 years. 1, look at that. It worked. Great. So thank you, Sandra. I wasn't sure if that would work, so I didn't want to confuse everyone, but given your, and you're going to get this, by the way. So this is going to come to you. Thank you. I wasn't 100% sure if that would work, but yes. But let's talk about the square brackets. Let's talk about the, let's talk about what's going on here. What's going on here? Do you see I have a semicolon? Does everyone see that I have a semicolon? What's really going on is that there are 4, and Sandra, help me with this, is that every cell in Excel can be formatted 4 different ways, right? Every single cell. So Sandra, help me out with that. When I say that every single cell in a spreadsheet can be formatted 4 different ways, what are we talking about here? I think the conditionals, yeah, the traditional. So what are the traditional 4 parts? Good, right? When we say the 4 traditional parts, the conditionals, yeah, we'll override that when you do it that way. But before we get back to this, let me put the let me actually put the actual syntax for this one here. I'll put it beside. Okay, it looks like this. Every single cell. Let me see here. Every single cell in a spreadsheet can be formatted 4 different ways. So what are the 4 ways? Does anyone know this? Can you guys answer this one here? When I say every single cell can be formatted in 4 different ways, does anyone know what I'm talking about here? Thank you, Sandra. Exactly. In this logic, every single cell in a spreadsheet can be formatted where you say, how should we format the value how should we format this cell if it contains a positive number? And then how should we format the cell if it contains a negative number? Then what if there's a 0? And finally, what if there's text? Every single cell can be formatted 4 different ways. This is a very, very powerful skip tool to know when formatting values in any spreadsheet. And so let's take a look at how this works. Let's pretend here, guys. Let's pretend I had a number and I wanted the number. Let's imagine I had a number 56. And I wanted it, if it was positive, I wanted to have a plus in front. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why, but if it's a positive number, I want to see it with a plus in front. Okay. If it's a negative value, I want to see it with brackets. So if it was negative, I want to show it with brackets around it. The default with negative numbers is a minus. I want my positive numbers to have a plus, and I want my negative numbers to have parentheses, negative 56. Okay. Now, if it's a 0, then if it is a 0, I don't want to see zeros. What do people sometimes like to, guys, go into the chat. What do people sometimes like to see? Imagine you had a whole column of zeros. Some people don't want to see a whole big pile of zeros on the spreadsheet. What do they prefer to see instead of all sorts of zeros? Some people don't like to see zeros all over the place. What do they prefer to see instead of a page filled with zeros? People sometimes prefer to see a dash, right? So what I want to say, yeah, thank you, right? AZ is a dash, right, Alan? Thank you. If there's, instead of zeros, I want to see a dash, and then you can tell it what to do if there's text. So here's what you can do. I'm going to build a custom number format that looks like this. I'm going to build a custom format that, let's go in together, guys. Can you watch this careful because it's a little bit hard to see, just you're going to have to take a look at my screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a plus and then 0.0. Does everyone see that? I put in plus 0.0 and then a semicolon. Now the semicolon says it's locked. So I have plus 0.0 and now a semicolon has locked it in place. So it says, good, this is what I will do if there are positive values. I'll put a plus in front of it. Perfect. Now it wants to know, well, what should I do if there's a negative value in the cell? And I'll say minus 0.0. and then put another brackets. Good. Now that one is locked in. So I told it what to do if there's a positive value in the cell and then what to do if there's a negative value. Perfect. Now it wants to know what should I do if there's a 0 in the cell, and I'm going to put in a dash. Does everyone see that? In my third section there, I put in a dash. So if it ever sees a 0, it will display a dash. Finally, in the fourth section, it wants to know what should it do if there's text. I'm going to put a message. I'm going to say this cell should contain a value. Look at that. In my quotation marks, I said this cell should contain a value. Now watch, please, when I click OK. When I click OK, take a look. If there's ever a positive number in the cell, it displays it with a plus. If I put a negative number in the cell, it displays it with minus sign with brackets. If there is a 0 in the cell, it shows me the little dash. It looks like a dash, but what's actually, guys, what's actually in this cell right now? It looks like a dash, but what's really there is the 0. Finally, if I put in any text at all, it will say this cell should contain a value. It's so powerful to know what happens and what should you do if there's positive numbers, negative numbers, zeros, or text. And let me do this. Let me copy the actual syntax off to the right again so that you can see it. I need to turn this into a piece of text. So when you come back to my spreadsheet, you can take a look at it. This is the syntax that I used in this cell here, just like that. Positive, negative, 0, text. Okay, very powerful. You can do lots of great things. Yeah, right. Don't want, by the way, Henry, so I showed you above. Now you know, I just showed you the 4 ways you can format any cell. The semicolons are intended to designate the 4 ways: positive, negative, 0, and text. But you can override that, as I was going to show you, and you can override that with some logic, where you can sometimes try to say if some logic is true, format it one way. If other logic is true, do it another way. You can use it for that purpose as well. The intention is positive, negative, 0, text. Henry, for your question, I might actually solve this particular problem with conditional formatting, but either would work. Okay, perfect. Now, does anyone know you can also apply colors? You could make the positive ones be, let's say, blue, and you can make the negative ones be red, and you can make the zeros be a different. Does anyone know how you can do that? Does anyone know how you can change the colors? Eric, any idea how you can make each of these ones a different color? You can apply, yeah, beautiful, thank you. You can apply colors with square brackets. So you can do something like this. Watch, you could say in square brackets, blue. So now the positive one will be blue. And for the negative, you can say red in square brackets, etc. And so now take a look, right? I'll put this off to the side here. You can put your colors in square brackets. So take a look quickly. If I was to go in and put in square brackets blue for my positives, and then I want to say in square brackets red for my negatives, take a look. Blue one, positive numbers become blue, but negative ones turn red. And text is still black, right? Because I told it the text and zeros should be black. Very powerful. Guys, this technique works in any spreadsheet you build, not just models, but it's particularly helpful in models, okay? This is good. So Sandra, excellent question. I want to show you one last thing that you've clearly seen before, Sandra, that gets people very, very frustrated, and that's as follows, guys. I'm going to show you one last thing here that gets people very, very frustrated. Watch this. Very few people I've ever encountered know this particular technique. Sandra, it does. So good for you, Sandra. You figured this out. Take a look what happens. Guys, imagine I had a column of numbers. Imagine I had a whole column of values and I had a plus 54 and a negative 8. I'm actually going to, let me take off the colors here just so it's easier to see what's going on. Okay, watch this. Let's pretend I had a whole column of numbers, plus 54, minus 87. Let's go minus 7, plus 14, whatever. Oops, I want to say plus 14, minus 65, and then 47, 68. So if you ever do something like this, people are going to be very, very frustrated, right? What's the problem? What's the problem if you ever hand into somebody a column of numbers? Never, never, never present anybody a column of numbers that looks like this. What's the problem with this column? What's the problem? Yeah, Henry, you can change it. You can change it. You can change it. You have to change the styles. Henry's asking, can you can, yes, you can do it. It's not aligned, right? How do people like numbers to be aligned in column? Eric, you're saying misaligned. You're right. So how do we want, right, Paul? How does everyone want to see numbers aligned? You're absolutely right, Paul, or who said this? Through the, where did I see someone say, how does everyone like to see numbers aligned? When I tell you the answer, you'll realize at the decimal, right, Inti? At the decimal. Look at this, guys. My decimal is weaving around. Everybody likes to see numbers lined up through the decimal, and it's not, right? My decimal is weaving. It's looking distracting. So how do people fix this? How do people fix this? The way most people fix this is not optimal. Take a look. The way, yeah, AZ, you're saying you could use a different font. The reality is most people use standard fonts like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman. They're all going to do this. My decimal is not aligned. Does everyone see that? The decimal is messed up. Okay, so I need to fix the positive values. Would you agree? I need to take my positive ones and shift them. My positive ones need to shift to the left. Watch this though, please, guys. Take a look. Here's how most people fix this problem. This is going to be very, very subtle. What most people do is they go into their custom format, and you see I have plus 0.0. What most people do is they put a space. Look at what I'm doing. Most people put a little space after the positives. Watch very carefully when I click OK, because what's going to happen is my positive numbers are going to shift to the left. Take a look. When I click OK, my positive numbers shifted to the left. However, those of you who have an eagle eye, like all my old bosses, would notice that they're still not aligned. They are actually on paper. If you had a big column of numbers on paper, you would realize they're actually still not aligned. I used to have a boss who would take my printouts and he would flip it sideways, and he took out this big giant metal ruler and he tried to draw a line right through the decimals. And he would always say, Ian, they're not aligned. And I'd say, what are you talking about? They're good enough. And he'd say, no, not good enough. So how do we do this? How can I fix this? Your boss too, Eric? Maybe we have the same boss. Took out a big metal ruler and tried to draw a line through the decimal. Well, you can show your boss as well. Here's how we solve it. To solve this, and Sandra, you already told us, so thank you. To solve this, we need to use a very underutilized skill in Excel. We need to use the underscore character. Watch what we need to do, guys. Help me out. I am going to go back into my custom number formatting. Do you see this? I'm going to go back into my custom number formatting, and I'm going to go positive. This is going to be really subtle. Positive 0.0, and then I'm going to put in an underscore. Does everyone see that? I put an underscore. What does the underscore mean? What does this underscore character mean? What the underscore means is, whatever you put next, whatever you put after the underscore, it will not display that character, but it will leave exactly that amount of space. So whatever comes after the underscore, it will insert that amount of space. So help me out, guys. How much space exactly do I want after the positives? Well, I want the amount of space that a right bracket would take up. How much space does a right bracket take up? So I'm going to say, look, underscore, and then the right bracket. So I have positive 0.0 underscore and then the right bracket. Guys, watch this very carefully. When I click OK, look what my positive values do when I click OK. They're going to move a teeny bit further, right, Eric? And 1, 2, 3, go. They shifted. Now your boss is going to be thrilled, Eric. You can say to them, oh yeah, now they're straight. Pull out your ruler, because now they are perfectly aligned. So what you'll need to do in your syntax is you'll have to say, are these documented in Microsoft Help? I don't know, probably not. Does anybody here work at Excel? No? Okay. Well, the help function's not very good. But I don't know. Probably not. It might be. I find not that helpful. And by the way, I know some senior people at Excel very well, so they would probably agree with that. To be honest, I would tell them to themselves. So what you need to do is this. Let me put it in my syntax, guys. Positive 0.0 and then the underscore. So the underscore means whatever you put next, it will leave exactly that amount of space. This is an absolutely critical character to know. If you are ever building columns of numbers, you need to know this character. Otherwise, your numbers will not be properly lined up. Absolutely positive. Yeah, exactly. Right, so it's so important, right, Celia, to have that. Now, let me show you this, guys. Now, the next time you go back in, take a look at my screen, please. The next time you go back into custom number formatting, you're going to say, oh, now I know what all these things mean. I understand what the 0 and the pound, and there's this underscore here, right, Celia? And why is there a right square bracket? Well, it's leaving that amount of space. And what's the semicolon? Well, so look at this one. It tells me how should I format the value if it's positive, and then how do I format it if it's negative. And we've got the color coding, so many important things to know. And why am I showing you all this? At the end of the day, why do I care about any of this stuff? Because these skills allow you to make sure your models are clearly telling a story. The numbers make sense. In any spreadsheet you build, you're creating confidence. Your numbers are clear. They are organized. And they create confidence with your user and your reader. Okay. Any questions? I want to do one more kind of major tool here before we kind of wrap up. Any questions though on George says the help works if you Google it. Right. Is right. Okay. Any questions then on custom formatting, guys? Make sure you get really comfortable with custom formatting, because these skills are critical in models and in any Excel spreadsheets that you ever build. Okay, so let's do one more major topic here, major theme before we.
Excuse me, Ian. There were a few questions that were missed back.
Oh, okay, great. Do you want to? Yeah, it's harder to.
I'll just read them to you. So, George had a question about, are you going to delve into VBA? Well, evidently not at
No, I mentioned that one already.
He was asking, is it required to know VBA for financial modeling?
That's a great question. Is it required to know VBA for financial modeling? The answer is no. You do not need it. I am not a VBA expert. I know enough to be dangerous. In fact, I would actually encourage people in most instances to avoid VBA, even if you're really good at it. Why? Because when you email your files or you show your files to your boss and your colleague, it often causes confusion. VBA is fantastic. It's powerful. At the Marquee Group, our training business, we teach VBA all the time. What I would say, though, is if you're going to use it, make sure that your users understand it, know it. Make sure that that your colleagues are familiar with it. You know, where I will use VBA, guys, where I like to use VBA, though, is custom formatting with my quick access toolbar. Unfortunately, you cannot see my quick access toolbar, but watch this, guys. Look at this here. I have a value. This number, look, right now is blue. Well, what if I want to make it black? What if I make it red? What if I want to go back to blue? What if I want to make a yellow shading on it? This is some, let me actually do this. There we go. What you're seeing here is my quick access toolbar. And my quick access toolbar was built with VBA that lives just in my, own personal Excel folder. It does not travel with the file. So if you email it, no one's going to get confused. By the way, if you want to know how to do that, I won't have time today. If you want to know how to customize your quick access toolbar, you're in luck, because I just posted on my LinkedIn page a video on exactly how to do that, an 8-step process, and it got a huge number of hits. I was thrilled. Check out my LinkedIn page for a video on the 8-step process to customize your QAT, which is, of course, your quick access toolbar. That requires a tiny bit of VBA. So powerful. If you want to check out that video, I think you'll like it. You can send me a comment after. Was there anything else before I try and do one more thing here?
Very quickly, Fernanda asks, do you have a price volume mix? I think she might have been talking about when you were saying
she was talking about a financial model. Listen, in financial models, if you're interested, guys, in financial modeling, you may want to check out through the FMI, our foundations program. Our foundations program includes 60 videos, 12 hours of me. So the only downside is you got to listen to me for 12 more hours, but 60 videos, 12 hours, where I walk you through step by step by step, every single step to build up a best-in-class, world-class financial model. That's and I use this Henderson model as an example. When we build up revenues, my strong recommendation for any company you will ever model is to think about price volume. I always get unhappy when I look at models and they simply forecast revenue with a top-line growth rate. They say, revenue is going to grow 4% next year. Why? What's happening? What does it mean? I always strongly encourage people, for any business in the world, think about the pricing dynamics. What is pricing going to look like? Doesn't matter if it's a real estate building, a condo, if it's a mining company, an energy business, an airline, it doesn't matter. What does pricing look like for the business, and what are volumes? Think about pricing. Think about volumes. A good modeler will do that. And then, of course, revenue is simply going to be price times volume. Very, very simple. So, and so that's what's going on there. So, yes, I strongly encourage you to think about price volume mix, because it allows you to get very smart about the company that you're forecasting, or the project, or the opportunity, or the division, or whatever it is that you're forecasting. Okay. Let me show you one last thing here, guys, very, very quickly. I want to show you very quickly, last thing. I only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to do this very quickly. It ties back to the second point, is incorporating, nice if I could spell, incorporating notes and sentences in Excel. So it's so important to have notes in Excel files. It's really important to be able to include things like notes, sentences, to help pull it all together. As an example, let's pretend here. Let's pretend I had a tax rate. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to type in a number 35 right now. Just bear with me. Let's pretend I had a number that was tax rate, and I needed a sentence. Let's pretend I needed a sentence that said the tax rate used in the model is, 35. Okay. I never want to type it in like that. I don't want to type it in dead like this, because then it's dead. And if you ever change it to 40, of course, then the value won't change, right? It's not linked. So it's really important to know how to create dynamic sentences, dynamic links. And to do this, of course, you have all probably seen this before. We're going to use Excel's concatenate function, or you can use the ampersand, which is exactly the same thing. And these are in my slides. You can use the concatenate function. You can use the ampersand. But there's a problem. People get very frustrated. The reason I want to show this to you is people get very frustrated. These tools. Does anybody know why? Does anyone know the biggest frustration with using Excel's? Does anyone know why? Yeah, great. Sentences, links, all sorts of things in charts. Why is it people get very frustrated with Excel's concatenate or ampersand? There's one reason. They don't extract the formatting. They don't extract the formatting. So let me give you an example. This one's dynamic. This is going to just take 2 minutes. Bear with me. Dynamically, I'm going to say equals. I'll just use Excel's concatenate function. Equals concatenate. And I'm going to say the tax rate used in the model is. Okay. So here's how it works. All your text goes in quotes. All your text goes in quotes. The tax rate used in the model is, and then you can put a comma. And when I put a comma, I will link it to this cell. And it says the tax rate in the model is 35. That's fine. It looks just like this sentence. So far, so good. Now, if I change it to 40, it changes. You're going to get this file. But the problem is, what if this was actually 35.45%? If I entered a very, very simple, if I entered a very simple number, 35, whatever, if I had a very specific number, watch this, please. If my tax rate was 35 with a lot of decimals after it, look what my concatenate does. My concatenate function says the tax rate used in the model is, and then it's linking to the tax rate. But it's not extracting the formatting. It's just pulling the entire raw value. People get very, very frustrated. So how do you fix this? Fix this with Excel's. I like this. There's more than one way to do it. Yeah, text. Thank you. That's what I was going to say. With Excel's text function. And here's how it works. Let me show it to you, and I'm going to be done. I'm going to be done, and you're going to get this file so you can take a look. What the text function does, the text function says, where's the cell you're looking at? Where's the cell you're looking at? And then it's so nice. You know why? Because in quotation marks, it says, build me a custom number format, just like I showed you above. Build me a custom number format. So I'm going to say 0.0%. Build me a custom number format. Look at this cell. Look at the cell, and then build me a custom number format. So look what I can do. Just like I showed you earlier, I can say, well, if it's positive, put a plus. But most people don't know you can do this. I can also now put in my semicolon and say, well, let's say it's minus. If it's a minus value, I can say minus 0.0%. And now I'm using a text function to say, look at this cell. If it's positive, format it like this. If it's negative, format it like that. The tax rate used in the model is plus 35%. But of course, if it was negative 25, you get the idea. It puts it with a minus. All these tools coming together, pulling together in a very powerful, powerful way. So I think I'm going to end it on that note. You're going to get the model. You're going to see my notes file. You're going to get the slides. It's 7 o'clock Eastern time, so we're at time. But guys, I've loved your interaction and your questions and your feedback. I think maybe what I'll do is, again, I don't like to go past. I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes if people have questions, but I do know some people probably have to go because we said we would end now. I wanted you to see critical Excel skills need to build and design a powerful model. So we talked about centering quickly. We talked about a whole bunch of different formatting skills, and then how to build notes and sentences, but format them properly so that they look exactly the way that you want. Okay, thanks guys, appreciate that. Thank you. If anyone, if you guys, as I said, if you want to check out some of my other webinars on modeling best practices, you'll find those. If you go to my LinkedIn page, on my LinkedIn page, you'll see my balance sheet videos on the top 10 reasons balance sheets don't balance. You can also check this one out for sure. You're going to like this one, how to customize your quick access toolbar. You're going to like this one for sure. This is powerful. If you've never done this before, check out that video and let me know what you think. Okay. Check us out at the FMI if you actually want to learn or get better and validated in your financial modeling. And guys, I hope to see you again. So I want to thank Celia and the rest of the team for bringing me in. If there are any questions, then thank you all. If there are any questions, why don't you put them in the chat or unmute? And I'm happy to stick around if people have any final questions that they want to pose here. Okay, is there any final questions then? If you have to go, I totally get it. Thank you for being here today, guys. I'm just looking to see. So, can we post a YouTube link? I will leave that to Gráinne and Celia about a YouTube link. Yeah, it'll, I don't know where do you, they posted somewhere on, I think they posted on your forum. I'm fine if you, great. Thanks, Daisy. I'm glad you enjoyed those tips. Great. Let me know how it goes. Feel free to shoot me notes on LinkedIn or email if you have any questions or comments.
We'll be adding, if you want, Ian, we can add your contact information to the links below the video for the meetup.
Yeah, it's in my email address is here, but you can LinkedIn me. I'm very easily available on LinkedIn. Whatever. I'm easy to find. It's not hard to find me. So
okay. Yep. It looks like from the comments that people really got a lot out of the session. I know I did. So thank you so much for
Thank you. It's
giving
a
us
thrill
this
to
thing. Covered quite a bit of territory. It looks like you had a lot more you could have done if you wanted.
You know,
so,
I'm like a wind-up toy. I could just go forever, but I could go for hours. There's so much to talk about in models and Excel skills for models. There's a million things we could do, but these are pivotal, critical, fundamental things, and people don't always know them. So I like to start with that. We can do another one if you like. What is it? Alan said concepts are applicable. Yeah, great.
Celia,
right. Well,
Celia has a question. I think she has a hand raise.
Hi, and thank you so much for the session. I wanted to ask something. One of the questions I get most from people who come to me with financial models to fix or to improve, and I am not a financial modeler, so my work is a lot focused on automation,
right,
but not on the financial side,
right.
At least not on this, on the I would say complex. For me, it's complex.
Yep.
All the different rates and KPIs and all the financial understanding you need to have to build a good financial modeling. And one of the struggles people have the most is with making the information flowing from different sheets in a workbook or from one workbook to another workbook without getting problems with, oh, now I inserted a new row and now my formulas went all wonky with ref errors,
right?
Or having to pick cells one by one. That happens, in fact, because of that, right? Because people build their formulas linking cell by cell instead of making things more dynamic. So my question, of course, we don't have time for this today, and please feel free to come back anytime you'd like to speak more, to teach us more, because the session was so great.
You know, Celia, your group, I knew the purpose today was to deal with Excel skills, but you know, your group seems to have a lot of interest in modeling as well. And I'm not surprised, because people who use Excel often are very involved in forecasting and planning and building models. So I would be happy to come back and do, you know, a different session one day as well. What I will tell you is I strongly warn people to be very careful and encourage them, if at all possible, discourage people from linking Excel files together. I know sometimes it's unavoidable, but I strongly discourage people from linking files. People often do it very, very cavalierly without thinking, but they link all sorts of cells to other workbooks, other Excel files, and it almost always creates a bit of a mess and a disaster. So I strongly encourage people to avoid it. If you truly have no choice, Celia, my strong recommendation, if you truly have no choice, is to do this. I would never in a model in any have hundreds of cells everywhere that link to a different file, and this one links to a different file, and this links to a different file. I would never have hundreds of random places where you're linking to a different file. Then it's impossible to find them. What I would do is have your like a connection sheet here. This is where I would have what I would do is the inflows, outflows. So what I would do is I'd have one sheet that says incoming, and I would have outgoing. Maybe you have some cells that are coming into your model from other places and some that are going somewhere else. And what you could do is all of the links to other files would be here. So you're linking these cells to other files, and then the rest of your model should only link to these cells. So then you know you've got one compact, compartmentalized place in your model that's linking, or that's coming in, or where cells are going out.
Do you recommend Power Query at all for this type of work, or
listen,
it's not something that you use most?
Power Query is great for data management, right? I mean, I always tell people that there's really, in all my travels, I've probably taught Excel, advanced Excel, hundreds, maybe 1,000 times. I don't know. I always tell people that there's really only two major uses of spreadsheets, really, in the business world. One major use of Excel is managing data, big data, little data, doing things with data, pivot tables, Power Query, right? Analyzing data. That's a big need of Excel. And the other major need of Excel is to build tools like models, forecasting tools. Most things people ever do in Excel fit into one of those two categories. You're either dealing with big dumps of data and analyzing it, or you're trying to build some sort of a decision-making tool, a model. I really don't see much need for things like Power Query when it comes to models. They're great for, managing data, analyzing data. Fantastic. I love it. I've built 100 models at least 100 models. There's really not a lot of need, I don't think, for having Power Query. Heck, even pivot tables are rarely needed in financial models, right? It's a whole different premise. It's a lot of different Excel skills used in models versus in managing data.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask if you have any resource, and you can then send us that back when you send us your files. If you can send us any information where people can refer to learn about these skills, how to build a financial model, how to set up the assumptions, and
Sure.
everything else, the inputs, and how to make the information flow from sheet to sheet without having all those messy formulas that each cell is a different formula and it's picking
Sure.
up.
I wasn't wearing my sales hat today, but since you're asking, that's the whole purpose of the FMI. That's why the FMI exists. The FMI exists to both teach and validate people's skills around modeling discipline. So all of the videos in this, so if you want to get in gently, it's also a much lower price point. You can access all of the videos in our foundations program that teach all the things you're talking about. How do you set up the model? How do you design the model? How do you get the assumptions in? Every single step along the way, we do. And when people finish foundations, you get this really nice, shiny badge. And so that's where we teach modeling. The other business I told you I'm with, Marquee Group, has self-study modeling course. We also have self-study advanced Excel courses. So there's options that you can find where we're focused on these topics.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you can, then that information is in your PowerPoint, your presentation, right?
Yeah,
so
you can find all that.
Can use that. Okay.
Was there other? Great. Looks like. Are there other? I thought I saw someone's hand. Vivek, did you have a question? You have 6 interesting questions. Did you want to ask a question? Go ahead.
No, I was just noting down while your presentation was going on. So I'll start with that. It means, I feel that your presentation, financial modeling is normally it's a niche area in terms of Excel. So I'm going to ask, and I just want to get your perspective on that. So first thing I want to ask is, do you dictate the data model when you go to your customer? Do you tell your customer that I want data in this format? Because you have designed like Excel data model, all the financial statement and everything, what is designed by data model. So do you dictate that to your customer saying that, okay, you have in your data, it is written as a vendor, but in my data, it is as a supplier.
So help me explain to me why did the client call me? What does the client want from me to do? Because that'll depend on my answer.
Say you go to one client, they call a supplier like service provider as a supplier, and other vendor may call same person, so the person you are buying from, as a vendor. Now, if you try to use your model, then it will not work because one is calling supplier, another one is calling vendor. So do you dictate when you go to your customer, do you dictate the model that, okay, I want data in certain format?
So listen, are you talking about a model like this that I showed you, like a financial model, a forecast? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's back up. Let's back up a second. Companies need to have financial models just like this one, either to make lots of decisions like we talked about. If they want to do planning or hiring decisions, they might need a model like this to understand cash flow. Let's pretend they want to go to the bank. Let's pretend Henderson Company decides that they need to borrow $10 million from the bank. They're going to go to the bank and they're going to say, I want to borrow $10 million. And the bank's going to say, show me your model. Or the bank will build a model of Henderson to understand, can Henderson support $10 million more of debt? So what a good financial modeler will do is they will talk to the company, and the good financial model will figure out, how should I design my model customized for this particular situation? So the modeler will tell the client, this is the information I need you to give me. I need you to tell me what your costs are. I need you to tell me what your capital expenditure forecast is. The modeler has to ask lots of, I talk about this in the video series, but the modeler is the person that says, this is what I need from the client, and then the client provides the data, and then the financial modeler person builds the model. Every model is a little bit customized to fit that particular situation.
So Jan, if I ask you, like, you don't dictate, you don't tell customer that, okay, I want it in this format. You customize to the customer.
If I'm the model builder, I tell the client what type of information I need, and then I build it. So if I'm the expert modeler builder, I'm going to think about the, in one of the videos in the course, I talk about how do you plan the model? How do you design? If I'm the model builder, I'm going to design it. I'm going to plan it. I'm going to structure it. And I'm going to ask the client to provide me data. They don't build this. I build it, and they will just send me the information I need to go into the model.
Okay. Thank you. And my next question is, do you create a hierarchy using GL and cost center and breaking it down to?
Yeah, it depends on the level of detail we need. All companies have huge amounts of detail because they have general ledgers. But if I'm building a financial model, I don't necessarily want all of that data. My job is to figure out what's the appropriate level of detail. As an example, when I look at this company's costs, their operating costs, I decided that it would be enough to show 3 or 4 fixed costs and 2 of the major variable costs. So you'll notice I didn't just have 1 row for all the costs, but I also did not have 1,000 rows for every single little cost. I'm doing it in the categories that I believe are helpful and meaningful for forecasting. Without having to. So I will often look at the general ledger to understand the major categories. But Vivek, one of the biggest problems with financial forecast models is they're too detailed. Being too detailed doesn't always give you better decision-making capability. It just gives you a lot of detail. It doesn't mean you can make a better decision. So, a modeler has to think about what's reasonable, what's appropriate to build this forecast.
Okay, you already answered my third question by this, because I was going to ask, how do you create a hierarchy for revenue, asset, and liabilities and everything? So you already answered. My fourth question also, I think you have answered, but it was my challenge always when I do a lot of financial modeling.
Okay.
What I try to do is I try to create a SaaS application. So I dictate my customer the way I want the field, and then I map it, and then they can plug and play it. So if XYZ field is called ABC field in my model, I just map it and change it.
Yeah, there's nothing. That's fine.
Yeah, so you already answered that question as well.
Yeah.
Do you recommend using any, like right now what I'm seeing is you are creating your own model. Do you recommend using any custom financial models which you can plug and play?
No, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. I mean, what I recommend is you build your own model once that you like, and then you'll always do something similar. So for example, Vivek, if I had to build a model for any other company in the world, I might start with this one. I might start with this model, and then I'm going to customize it. I'm going to do a lot of work to modify it, to customize it, to change it. But when you build the model, you need to understand every step, every calculation, every piece of it. You can't say, well, it's a template. I don't know how half of it works. You have to understand all of it if you're using it. So I encourage people to, those downloadable templates often have lots of things in them that people don't understand. So, and things you don't need. So I would encourage you to be careful.
Okay.
They're not bad.
I'm not a financial modeler like you. You have been working 20 years in this financial modeling. But what I do is I use a Zebra BI, which is Excel financial modeling tool.
Yeah.
And I try to look for easy way around. You are a master in Excel, but I'm not. So I was trying that, and I had a few difficulties in using that as well.
You're going to have, so here's the thing. First of all, there's nothing wrong with those softwares. And if you use those software applications, there's nothing wrong. I just don't want you to ever be surprised. I don't want you to be surprised and one day the client says, hey, what is this doing? And you think, oh, I never saw that. I didn't know it. Oops, that's causing a problem. You know, your people are going to lose confidence. So you just make sure if you're using other tools, make sure to understand them. What I would tell you, Vivek, is knowing the kind of questions you're asking. And I'm sure you're very capable with Excel and financial ideas and accounting. You could become a strong modeler very quickly. I don't think it's going to take you. And it's just, if you're working with numbers and with companies, it's a really important skill to know how to build a forecast, and it just gives you a lot of extra credibility. So, you know, I think
creating financial modeling means all over the world. And I've been presenting like you. I mean, when I'm looking at you, what you have created, it's maybe 50% of that I am doing it right now. But I've been presenting all over the world on financial modeling, and I learned a lot of things from you today.
Oh, wow, that's kind of you to say that. Thank you. I'm glad that you did. And you know, if you ever, again, if you wanted to check out our videos in the foundations, you're going to learn a lot more. I mean, because I've got, you know, lots and lots of hours, and it sounds like you're doing some models, and you would. It sounds like you're very close. You just need to add a bunch more and get more confident and more comfortable and practice. You know what, Vivek? It just comes down to practice. There's actually nothing super difficult. You just need to do it over and over, practice over and over, and then you get really good at it. It's not rocket science.
But Ian, I will tell you frankly, my challenge is normally the companies start with their financial model, and halfway through, it is normally the mapping and everything is broken. So how do you handle that?
Listen, it's not your job to be responsible for somebody else's model, but if you can identify error, it depends on why you were hired. If you identify errors in people's models, by the way, if you want to watch one of my, I'm sure it's on YouTube, one of my webinars on how to find errors in people's models, I show people some really great skills to find errors in spreadsheets. If you do that, if you find a lot of mistakes, like problems with mapping, then what I always do is I go back to the client and say, your model's a mess. Your model's do you want to pay me to fix it? I will, but your model has all sorts of problems with it. It's not working well. And then we can go help them fix it. But I don't want to work with their model if I discover that there's errors in it. So you really have to figure out if there's errors before you start working. Otherwise, nothing makes sense.
Okay, thank you so much. We have Alan. He has hand raised.
Great.
So can you unmute Alan, and you can ask the question, please?
Yeah, my question is, do you do much drill down modeling? Like the people I work with, I work for a very large organization, and we've got a lot of sections. So we do a lot of drill downs. So we found Excel couldn't handle the level of data. So now we're using Cognos and SAS.
Right.
But I loved Excel. I thought it was one of the nicest tools to have.
Yeah.
Has Excel gotten to the point where it can do good drill downs?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, Excel, how long ago did you switch to Cognos? How many years ago?
Probably about, well, we had it probably 50, over 20 years, like right from the beginning, from when it was,
Sure.
but I think of major modeling has probably changed in the last 15 years.
Okay. So back then, in those days, an Excel spreadsheet only had 64,000 rows in it, which meant that there's a lot, but if you had really big data, Excel couldn't handle it. Now, as you can see in my spreadsheet, Excel has just over 1 million rows. So Excel used to be 2 to the power of 16 is how they got to it. Now it's or 2 to the power, and now it's 2 to the power of 20. So there's a lot more rows. So now there's 1 million rows, and now Excel does work more quickly. I'll be honest though, if you have a model, Alan, and there's 100,000 rows in it, yeah, it's going to be slow. Excel might not be the best. It really might not be. What you can do though, what people will sometimes do is imagine you had section on costs, and then you had your people costs, and imagine you had all your people, Alan, Ian, and you had thousands of people. Well, you could have your ... and then your total, right? What you total people cost. There's lots of skills you can use. So what I would enjoy doing is you have all your costs for individual people. Imagine that there's 1,000 rows. What I like to do is just group them. So you can go you can go to the data menu and just group them. And what that does is it would put this little minus sign. So then you can close it. So you could have, your people costs or whatever it was. Like you could have categories, and then when you want to drill down, you can just open up the little handle and you can see the detail. So there is capability to do this kind of thing, but if there's tens of thousands of rows, yeah, unfortunately Excel may not be the best solution. Excel's not perfect for everything. I mean, it's good for lots of things, but in really big companies will often use third-party software for this reason.
Yeah. Well, this was a great presentation. It brought me back down to the basics because I forget a lot of like the formatting components, and the people on my team, they forget about it. And the way I usually do, I design the model, and then I've got people who help do the main components, and then I just get the people who are the best reviewers to review my work and clean up. Or I end up reviewing the work that they do, and I don't know. I'm a mediocre reviewer. I'm pretty good, but sometimes I'm getting old, so eyesight's starting to go.
I hear you. It's I imagine you're not that old, and you're still capable of doing lots of great work in Excel and finding the errors of the junior hotshots that think they know what they're doing. If you check out the webinar on my video on the top ways to find mistakes, you'll be finding mistakes in all the juniors' files, and they'll be stunned that you figured out mistakes so quickly in some of their spreadsheets. So hopefully you'll find that. And where are you based, Alan?
I'm in. Well, I work from home in Hamilton right now. So I'm based in Ottawa.
Ottawa. Okay, fantastic, great. Well, glad you could be here.
Oh yeah, well, it's with COVID and working from home, it's the speed of the connections is also a limitation, which makes things a little difficult. But anyway, great presentation. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to send it over to the people on my team, but then I thought, well, they have a lot of work to do too, so I don't want to disturb them.
Well, they might find it handy one day, but we'll watch it.
Oh, I'll recommend the
sure.
Video.
Great. Well, thank you.
And again, we hire people for training sessions, so I'll always keep you in mind for that too. So.
Please do. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That was great.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Well, Ian, it looks like we've really gone over our time quite a bit. So I think if you don't mind, I'm going to call it a day at this point.
All good. Thank you. People can find me if they have questions, but thank you for having me in. I appreciate that.
Well, it was a marvelous session. I mean, thank you very much for presenting. It was from the questions, the fact that we went half an hour over shows you that there was lots of interest.
Yeah,
so
we
thank
can
you
go.
very much.
Well, thank you all. It's great to meet you all. Thank you for having me in, and I look forward to being in touch.
And good night to everyone. And thank you very much for joining us, and hope you come back on our November 16th meeting with Power Query. So
Thanks, everyone.
good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Or good morning for you in New Zealand.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Ian.
Ian.
Good.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll
Thank
stop
you.
the recording now.
Yes, please. Thank you.